You're listening to Women's Dream Enlightenment, dream decoding, deep discussions, and spiritual stories of self-discovery to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, founder of Women's Dream Analysis. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today we have Dr. Sharnael. She is a captivating multidisciplinary expert who seamlessly blends naturopathic medicine, spirituality, and quantum science to empower individuals on their journey to wholeness. As the founder of True TV and author of 5 groundbreaking books, including her international bestseller, The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, Dr. Sharnael offers a unique perspective on achieving optimal health and unlocking human potential. Her global influence spans over 51 countries, where she shares her transformative insights through speaking engagements, online classes, and social media platforms. She also has over 15,000 clients online, remote with her technology of long-distance biofeedback. Welcome, Dr. Sharnael.
Hey, how are you? Happy to be
I'm
here. Thanks for
good.
letting me be here.
Yes, on this day of massive solar flare activity, so much is happening, and I'm glad that we were able to connect.
Yes, yes, very much happy to be here with you.
Yes. So the first question I'm going to ask you is the one that everybody gets to answer at the beginning, and that is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Yeah, enlightenment to me is just being aware of being aware. I think a lot of times in my life, and sometimes even now in the past, I kind of just went on autopilot, kind of just like let things happen and were mad about it when they happened. Now it's even more than I ever have been. I'm more aware of what I'm thinking about, what I'm talking about, what I'm feeling, why I'm doing what I'm doing, if I'm doing it for the right reasons, if I'm doing it because it's really what's in my heart's call, or if it's because there's some outside person that may be pulling the strings or making me feel like I have to, or feel bad if I don't, or feel like there's some sort of pressure there. Just living true, and also just again being very aware of each and every, staying present as much as possible, and living true, being authentic. And in the past, I would just be driving down the road and I would get somewhere and be like, how did I get here? Like I'd just be so somewhere else that I may not even be realizing what's going on, like really right in front of me, or looked at something so long that I don't even see it. Where I feel like, especially in this season of my life with so many changes happening, I'm really kind of taking inventory of what I'm doing, what needs to go, what needs to stay, and just kind of following what gives me energy instead of what depletes my energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple things with that answer. One, really attaching yourself to standing in decisions around love, right? Not about guilt, not about fear, not out of obligation, but being in that authentic place of understanding the decisions that you're making, like you said, because I feel that enlightenment is that too. It's acknowledging that you are a creator of your reality and that you're not just along for the ride. You're not a victim. You're not a consequence, something that doesn't have control, that you actually do have free will, but that you actually also have a large part to play in what's happening. And so I think that's the waking up. And that's part of the trajectory when we talk about ascension is understanding that we have a role here and that we need to be taking an active part in that.
I agree. Yeah, on the map of consciousness for like David Hawkins, when I test people, we do this thing called soul audits, and or we can do biofeedback, and we can see where people are on that map. And there's only a small percentage of people that are above the 200 mark, which is the wake up and or the courage to really see where they're at and take ownership of why they got there. I know there was a season in my life where I literally did think everything was happening to me, and I'd just be like, oh, why would they do this, or why would God do this, or like God's out there or something. But I've had a few pretty big things that kind of shifted that for me. And when it happened, or when I created that, I was like, oh wow. And it kind of sucked to realize I created this, but also it was empowering because it was like, if I can screw this up so bad, then I can also fix it, And I went to really think and remember on what it is, like a mantra of some kind, to get out of that Murphy's Law expectation. And I love my mom so much, and also when things would go wrong in the past, you know I would call her and she would just agree, like, oh my God, that's terrible, and I can't believe that's, and there's always something, she would say. And she didn't mean it like, oh, everything works out for you. There was always something. It was like meaning everything around the corner is come in threes, and all this programming that I had that I was choosing to unlearn. And she's someone that I do call, but I also, there are other people that I may call that see the end from the beginning and see the miracle of where I am at the time, and not necessarily agreeing with my needing to have it someone else's fault, but seeing like, well, what are you going to do to get yourself into a new space or a new timeline, or how do you envision this turning out, or what's your lesson here? And so I went from that Murphy's Law thing to really searching to go like, oh, what would be a good mantra to change that? And I remember watching TV, and this commercial comes on, and it's like Dr. Phil, and he's like, the best way to predict the future is to look at your past. And I thought, oh yeah, that might work. And I kind of thought about it a minute, and I was like, well, what if your past was like sucky? That's not maybe the best. And so then I kind of went inward again and was like, what would be a good replacement? And right after that, of course, synchronicities happen, and this meme comes up, and it's Abraham Lincoln meme. And he said the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I was like, ooh, now that is something I can really jump into. And so that has been my new program, is like, I created this, so how am I going to create something different? And really putting my energy towards.
Yes, I really like that. I was actually studying in depthly last night the concept of predictions and prophecies, and understanding that in the quantum field, there is no time linearity. So the concept of prophecy and prediction is really just knowing all of the possibilities and manifesting those to others before they happen. But it's just having knowledge, it's having that larger superconscious knowledge. And I also like the concept of unlearning. I think so many people need to do that. Unlearning things that people say to explain the things that happen to us because they don't know what else to say. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about your shifts that brought you here. But the other thing I was reading was about the different initiations essentially that happen to us when we start to access our spiritual ascension capacity. And those things usually can be seen as great misfortunes by some, when they are actually catalysts for that ascension. They can come in the form of medical problems or emotional problems or physical problems in our real world, interpersonal problems, but they're all things that someone could say, "Oh, that's so tragic, that's so horrible that that happened to you." And on the other hand, if we can see, I don't want to say everything has a silver lining, but the greater purpose behind it, we understand that it makes us who we are and that we can't do the work we're here to do unless we go through that. So
Yep.
please
I,
share your experience and those shifts that you mentioned earlier that led you to do the work that you're doing today.
yeah, I mean, I've had a few. I mean, illness has been a situation, divorce has been a catalyst, losing my job. When I went through the divorce, I actually had all three happen at the same time, like a really bad diagnosis while I was getting a divorce, and because of the divorce was losing my job in essence, which, hey, goodbye job, hello mission. And, when we have those transitions, it does, like you said, feel kind of scary, like, oh my God, like, what do we do? And yet, greatest teachers ever, and recalculating and really taking that inventory and being like, hey, maybe this isn't the path anyway. When we have the perspective that everything truly is working for us and we really believe that, then it leaves room for all of these energies to come through and create something really powerful and beautiful for us. And I know that sounds really easy on paper, to some people. Of course, we have our heart issues or opportunities as well, where we can physically be attached to a job or a person or a certain lifestyle. And when those things change, it almost feels like a death. And, I think that, yes, there are some things that we have to identify and be like, yep, this is how I feel. And once we own that and say it out loud, the brain on a neuroscience level basically goes, oh, okay, she's owning it, she's agreeing with it, now we can get somewhere, but not staying in that grief or sadness or death feeling. Because I've worked with people who have gone through really traumatic events, and you could put two people who have gone through the exact same thing, and one person is still affecting them 30 years later, and the other person has used it for that catalyst to springboard them into something beautiful and amazing. It's, and having that perspective. But again, I think it's just where your mind is at. And I'm not a big fan of talk therapy, especially if there's no resolution or way out of, let's just talk about this every week and make it bigger and put it in your field so you get more and more and more and more and more of it, and keep bringing more of a magnet of those things to you, and or actually talking about things to clear, to detox, and to replace. Because the replacing is a big piece that I think is missing, whether it's a mantra or a thought or a program. We can brainwash ourselves in the positive just as much as there can be brainwashing in the negative. And so unlearning is very, very key, but also relearning. And I like the word remember. Remembering to me is easier than learning. And when I remember that everything I already have is here, it's just a matter of believing or being alive in that, that's when the energies really shift and those quantum things really happen.
Hey everyone, I'm thrilled to announce that my debut novel, The Dream Haunters, A Metaphysical Mystery of Magic, is now published. It is the first book in the Witches of Maple Hollow series. The Book Life Prize calls it a highly inventive work, packed to the brim with surprise portals, ancient traditions, and dream worlds. Get your exclusive signed copy today at meganmary.com. Stop by the store while you're there and grab your dream journals, cozy blankets, pillows, candles, and more. And don't forget, it's also available in audiobook. Forward your proof of purchase from any online retailer to me, and I will send you a code to use next time you shop. I can't wait to read your reviews.
Yes, talk to me about the title, the remembering with the dash after the RE. Does that play into this concept?
Yeah. So remembering the frequency of love. And to remember, I love the word remember, because means to do again. And to member for me is to get in that alignment with source code, so source energy, love, who is God, who is source. And to, again, like you were mentioning at the beginning, it's like doing everything through the lens of love, through the purpose of love, and not just because there's a consequence or because someone's going to be mad or someone needs you or, whatever, but living in your truth. And there is a physiology and a biology to that. When we live true, we have these amazing hormones that cover our cells, that give us immunity, that help our skin and keep us hydrated and give us strength. You hear about those women who like go over and pick up the car off of the baby that was burning or whatever. It's like, we're superhuman when we really stay in that pocket of remembering love and staying in our truth and in that authenticity. And I don't mean just like the big things like who you're married to or where you live. Those are things that are important, but also even the little things of those voices that we can dial into that are like, hey, go to the grocery store at 2 o'clock and make sure it's this grocery store and take this plane trip, or make sure it's this flight and this airlines, and that you have this segment, and very, very specific things that you have no idea why. But when we follow those things, there ends up being some fruit, some really good fruit involved, as opposed to when we live a lie and or don't follow that and we do things just because. Anything less than our highest will always contain self-sabotage. And I run into a lot of people and work with a lot of people who are just in this energetic purgatory where they're stuck and they can't seem to figure out how to get out of that stuck feeling. And the chemicals that saturate the physical body do cause immunity issues. They do cause our hair to gray, our skin to wrinkle, our immunity to be suppressed. People tend to gain weight because their digestion slows way, way down when we live a lie. So to embody truth versus to live in these, whether it's white lies or just these, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just do this one time kind of thing. I mean, even what we eat, what we drink, ancient scriptures say, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And that word God actually means manifestation. And so there's been a lot of mistranslations with some of these texts, and I love like looking at all of them to see like what is it that it really means, what were they really saying. And even we wrestle not against flesh and blood, that word wrestle means we vibrate. So we're either vibrating with a resonance that's love, or we're out of sync and we're out of sound and we're in this dissonant sound, which isn't working with our physical body or with the field or with our world, with, because ultimately the planet has its own resonance as well, the Schumann resonance, which you talked about, the solar activity that can change that and those kind of things. So there's a lot to us living true and staying in that. One of my mantras is I am love and I stay, because we can take 2 steps forward and go back if we're not in that truly believing system to be alive in truth. And some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. And it's like, actually it does, like literally matter when we live true and when we don't. So yeah.
It affects matter,
Yes.
to coin a phrase. So I almost heard that when you said it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's not going to create anything, but it is. So that goes back to that self-fulfilling prophecy where you think, the law of attraction, where you think, oh, well, I guarantee you this is going to happen, or I don't want to do that because this is just going to happen and I don't want to have to deal with that. And by already saying that, you are bringing that into the 3D reality in a matter way. You're manifesting that, not meaning to. So manifestation can work to your detriment, essentially, if you're not aware that you're doing it. And we all have the ability to do it, but we just sometimes are manifesting what we don't want.
We're creating one way or another. So it's whether you want to create something really beautiful and powerful and alive and or creating something that's going to bring death and sabotage and energetic purgatory and dissonance. And yeah, I know I've done both. And like I said, part of my where I'm at right now is just really being so honed in on what that voice says and paying attention to those pushes and those little and getting quiet on purpose so I can actually hear and be in tune with whatever that voice is saying. And I tend to get a lot in the morning, like that kind of in between stage and or dreams. Those are really big. On the map of consciousness, those who tend to have lower mapping, like 200 or below, their field is really tiny. And I've actually tested some people who are in the 50s or the 25s. They're literally inverted. They have no field whatsoever and have to siphon off other people's field just to have a feeling of being alive. Versus someone who's 200 and above, the high, 1,000 being the highest, 200 is the wake up, 50 is like the will to finally make choices and being on purpose with your choices. But 200 being the courage mark where you're like, oh, I can finally admit, like, I did this, and having the courage to face the fact that we did this. And what I see is people who, the higher they are on the map, the bigger the field is. And when you have that big field, you have a bigger influence in who you're talking to without even saying words. Like just your presence can ignite people to their highest timeline and their belief system versus people who don't. They really could say all the right words and they're not going to move the needle at all because they have zero influence and people can hear it. People can feel it in their body when someone's lying, not telling the truth, feeling like they're trying to be manipulated. And that's why a lot of those people who are inverted have to use things like geoengineering and entrainment or entertainment or music or the news or things like that to do their best to monopolize the sound on the planet to get them to fit their agenda. Because if they just got on TV and said blah blah blah, everyone would be like, I'm turning that off, like I don't agree. So we are instruments and we're transmitting things all the time, and we're also putting things out like a radiation, and we can feel that when we really tune in on what's actually true. And what's true for you may not be true for me, and what my purpose is obviously going to be different, and slightly at least, by everyone else's. And that's the beautiful thing about diversity, is we need each other to see those blind spots and or to really do everything that's meant to be done on the planet. Because I don't necessarily want to do everything that you do, and you might not want to do what I want to do. But if we stay in what we're doing and everyone's actually doing what they're called to do while they're here, we could have a really cool tipping point. And I think we're kind of getting there in some ways.
Yeah, I was just about to talk about the tipping point because there was something else I was reading about. At what point do a larger majority of people hear the call and actually go through those, just for lack of a better term, initiation steps and start to dissolve the ego and embrace the power that they have and align themselves with that higher purpose and start embodying that information that they're receiving and doing what they're supposed to be doing out in the world. The more people do that, the more of those people that are here, the closer we get to that shift on the planet away from the old way of living. The other thing I want to say before I forget it, because I heard you mention the middle space between waking and dreaming, and that is one of my favorite places to hang out because I get so much information there. I mean, I get a lot in dreams too, but there's something about that liminal space. It's the one that I just feel I can really converse with that universal mind and receive so much information. I am definitely receiving so much information in that space.
Yes, that's awesome. I love it too, for sure.
Yes. And I mean, dreams, of course, are just another way for everyone to awaken that inner voice, to start listening to that intuition, because the intuition speaks through the subconscious that is present in the stories and experiences in our dreams. And I also think that dreams have a capacity to give us information from the superconscious, from the universal field that we can't access in our beta state, that we have to shift into that other brainwave state to be able to be on the same level as that other information. And when we do that and we open ourselves to receive that information, we really are on the path to that ascension.
Totally agree. Yeah, I always tell people, like, put a journal next to your bed or something to record. I don't really like recording as much just because the blue light can affect the waking part of being able to go back to sleep or whatever. But yeah, writing things down and being very aware and taking a lot of weight to what comes through during the night seasons, because, you know, I talk to a lot of people who wake up, in the middle of the night and they're like, oh, I'll remember this because it's so important. And then they wake up and it's just gone. So when we tend to kinetically connect with what's coming through, usually, even if we just start, we'll get way more than we started with. And it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And they're like, oh yeah, and then this happened and he was wearing that red shirt. And there's so much symbolism and so many messages that can come through when we really take weight to the investment that's been giving, we get more. And when we waste it and we don't really give it too much attention, then we won't get them. And so people who say, oh, I don't dream, it's like, well, first of all, get to bed before 10. And second of all, when you do get something, make sure you're being accountable with it and you're taking it with responsibility. We are responsible. And as we are responsible with those things, we will get more.
I like that responsible. Yes, it's true. So many people I've heard say, well, I don't really remember my dreams. Well, this is part of your decision. And it really is a discipline and a practice, just like meditating or yoga or breath work or anything else that you want to integrate into your life. You have to make the space and the time and the will to say, okay, I am going to remember them. And sometimes that is the simplest thing that you can do to start. And it's also true that a lot of people have trouble then remembering it all or remembering it for long, but that's just a matter of the brainwave transition. We forget about 50% of our dreams after the first 5 minutes. I've experimented with a lot of different techniques to try to record them. And I've actually found a pen that has a little red light on it.
Oh, cool.
And that allows you to record them without turning the blue light on, because I'm very careful about that. And I also have attempted to just record it without opening my eyes. Now, it takes a lot of practice because your handwriting can get quite messy and sometimes you write over it, not meaning to. But I almost like doing that too because it doesn't give you as detailed a report, but it gives you the main pieces and then you can go back and look at it when you wake up and fill in the rest. But yeah, there's so much with dreams that I find just it's treasure trove of information and a way for us to really connect with.
Absolutely. You're going to have to send me information on that red pen. That sounds like a good idea.
Yes, yes. So speaking of practical tools like the red light pen, what are some practical tools that you feel people can use to elevate their lives? I know you work with aromatherapy and crystals, but also I'd like you to talk a little bit about EMF protection.
Yeah, so definitely crystal. I have a whole card deck that people are using as tools. You could sleep on whichever one you pick for the day, put it in your back pocket or put it in your car and travel if you're traveling, stick it in your purse for the day, kids' lunchbox, backpack, based on what they pick. Definitely use essential oils literally every single day. There's a lot of frequency depending on what company you're working with. I've notoriously at length spent a lot of money doing tests on different companies over the years and landed on a company that I really like, that I actually do know has frequency. And I have been to the farms and do a lot of work with the actual earth. I'm leaving for Bali literally Sunday to do some work over there with some farms, and I'm going to Sri Lanka next month. But I've been to Oman, Turkey, Croatia, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, France multiple times. I love working with the earth and the plants and understanding what the frequency is and how source has given us this for our frequency. And there's a lot of things about plants that they have this genius intelligence, and the blood of the plant has a genius intelligence where it can even resurrect itself after going through the x-ray machine at the TSA. It dies and 4 hours later comes back if you're working with the real oil. But yeah, EMFs are another one of those geoengineering situations where, with the 5G, when I do biofeedback, I can really see how it's affecting someone, or if it is. People who have crystals in the house tend to have a really good report, depending on what kind of crystals they're having. And also, there was a lot of extensive work with different companies for EMFs, because I'm very sciencey, data, researchy, and I won't put my face or my back on anything that I don't know doesn't actually work. Just the integrity part and the karma of that, I don't enjoy. I just won't sell my soul to whatever, make money. I want people to be using products that are going to be supportive. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And I've turned down lots of money, lots and lots and lots of money to sponsor or advocate for other companies. That, I mean, I had to take down my whole schedule off of my website just because of the amount of people who really chased me down to, oh, I'll give you $50,000 if you would just support. It's like, you could stop, no amount of money, I'm going to work with what I know works, and you could quit now. So there's that. But this company, I know that when EMFs came out with 4G, let alone 5G, there were so many companies that just kind of popped up. And when we would test them, I was sad to say and see that a lot of them were just a piece of plastic that cost $100 that did zero. And they were still having these really chronic biological, physiological responses to the 5G. When I found this other company that I work with, is actually on my website. We not only have stuff for our cell phones, but our computers, our Wi-Fi box, our smart meters, which are tragic. And then there's body shields. So if you have something in your home, but you leave your home, there's wires under the ground, there's wires in the air. We want to have something that will keep the field sovereign, so we don't get affected and we don't have that opportunity for it to be a hormone disruptor and even like a brain disruptor. And there's voice to God tech, and there's all these other things where people are trying to infiltrate our systems to not only cause harm, but to cause confusion and to cause us to really not know which way is up or to recognize our own voice. And so, EMFs, I do have like a plug-in as well that will cover 2,000 square feet in the house. But even with the plug-in, I would still put something on your cell phone and also on your smart meter and your Wi-Fi box, because that seems to be a big issue as far as, the power of the EMFs. We haven't had a microwave in the house for decades. That has a lot of radiation that comes through. But yeah, EMFs are a biggie.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So many people are unaware of the technology that they're using every day. I have a crystal mat that is filled with about 8 pounds, I think, of amethyst.
I have
So,
that too. Yeah.
yes, I find it so interesting, the good and bad things that we're being exposed to that we're not aware of because we can't see them and we don't understand the effect that they're having on us, whether it's electromagnetic or whether it's light, like you were just saying, the blue light versus the red light. And now with the advent of LED and everything being super LED, it's even more bright and more in our face all the time. And we just don't understand the negative effect that is having on us. So it's important to integrate these tools and use them as part of our journey, because if we're experiencing blocks, whether they're energetic or emotional or physical, manifesting in the physical realm, that's going to prevent our ability to ascend and understand information and step into that role. So it's really important that we integrate these things on a daily level as much as we can.
Totally agree. Definitely. Totally on board.
Yes. So for people that are interested in the work that you do and some of the products that you've discussed, where can they find you?
Yeah, drsharnael.com. It's doctor as in DR, not spelled out doctor, but DR. And then Sharnael is SHARNAEL, like Israel, drsharnael.com. I have workshops available, certifications available. I have the EMFs, I have biofeedback, I do soul audits. My podcast is there. I do coaching, just because I can hear in people's speech patterns, usually within 3 or 4 minutes, what's going on that can maybe switch up the snag and help people get into a different timeline, especially for people who are kind of feeling that stuck, but biofeedback shows quite a bit. There's like 25 to 30 reports that go into everything from hormones to sleep patterns to whatever today's stress is, or emotions or organs or vitamin deficiencies. We actually can see if there's parasites or Lyme or biofilm or fungus, which I'm doing a huge fungus cleanse right now. And we have monthly parasite cleanses, because one thing I did see and have noticed through doing these is when we have mold or fungus or parasites, that does send a projection out into the field, which entities can basically gives them legal access. And also it puts out a victim energy, because basically if someone is participating and taking you and your nutrition value and harvesting you, not you personally, but a person, then you're basically sending out a signal that you are a good victim, cancel clear. And so when that radiation goes out, people will only submit to your lowest common denominator. So when we have found that we've killed the parasites and we've killed the fungus, and that equation is missing, and we only have positive vibration through the radiation, we start getting matches to that. And so people who have done biofeedback and then get on some sort of protocol, we see people get partnership like instantly. Like the guy who they've been dating for 15 years that wouldn't commit suddenly is like, marry me. Money that's been held off in some vortex in the sky is like now comes through, or the job comes through. Or I've had people who got like 3 job offers in a day after they've done some biofeedback scans, after they've killed the parasites. And like I said, we only get what we are. So for me, the starting point is often just looking to see, where are we in the first place? Because if you have a GPS and you're trying to get somewhere, you got to put in where you are first, and then you put in where you choose to go. And otherwise, if you don't have a starting point, we cannot manage anything if we don't measure first. So anything that's measured can be managed. And when we know where we're at on a measuring scale and we can see what's under the hood, then we have a better game plan on how to really change up the timeline and to be in a fun, easy timeline, instead of the stress of like, why am I here? And really just capitalizing on making that bigger and bigger and bigger of the stuck energy. So, but yeah, drsharnael.com. My podcast is every Thursday at noon. We like, having good teachers on and doing stuff like that. But I'd love to work with anybody who's interested. And I love things like this. And I appreciate you so much doing, bringing attention to some great topics like this. And I just really appreciate you taking time to have me today, and I'm just honored to be with you guys.
Yes, I appreciate that too. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience and your history, what brought you here today, as well as the work that you're doing out in the world. I know that my audience will really resonate with it, and I hope we stay in touch.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? You can now send me a text message and share your experience. Be sure to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button as well to be part of my growing community. Are you ready to take the next step in your spiritual journey? Don't miss out on the new Dream Empowerment programs. unique opportunities for you to unlock your inner wisdom, discover your authenticity, align with your higher self, and bring abundance into your life. If you'd like your dream or awakening story featured on my show, submit it today. Your dreams have the power to inspire and enlighten other women on their journey. Visit meganmary.com to find out more.